What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the 1-0 podcast. I'm Lyle Allenstein.
I'm Lexi Linderman.
I'm Will Horseman.
And after a 2-year hiatus, playing for the land-grant trophy will return this Saturday with Penn State taking on Michigan State. You know what that also means? The Daily Collegian is competing with the State News over at Michigan State for a competition to raise some money. So that means you should all go to Spotlight News, get a couple scrolls in, and read the Daily Collegian content on there to help us out. But while you're not doing that, you're going to be listening to this episode. So today we're going to be starting by recapping Indiana, previewing what's left to come for Penn State, and what Terry Smith's future lays with this program. So just to start, guys, what can you take away from Penn State's loss to Indiana?
I think my biggest takeaway from the Indiana game was just we really got to see what a full-out Penn State defensive line could have been. I think that, hopefully that made sense, but I think that the main issue for a lot of Penn State's defensive struggles this year have been underperformance from the defensive line. And I think against Indiana, denied Dennis Sutton, Zane Durant, they were both playing at a super high level when they maybe haven't been as much during Big Ten play. So I think that that was really something that I saw and kind of like makes, Penn State, I'm sure, a little sad. Like, why didn't we get this when we needed it against, UCLA, against Oregon, against Northwestern, games like that. But I think that just overall it showed what Penn State could have been this season, going toe-to-toe with one of the best teams in the country. I mean, Indiana had ranked number 3 in total offense heading in to this matchup, and they only scored 27 points. I mean, that's still, a good amount, but, for a team that's been scoring, 50-plus against pretty much everyone, like, that's pretty good, especially considering the struggles Penn State's defense has had against some teams, allowing 45 to UCLA, things like that. So definitely there were some bright spots, but then it just ended in heartbreak for Penn State. Obviously, you can't really make a better catch than what Amar Cooper Jr. made, and I feel like that's just kind of been the theme of the season for Penn State. It's just like the luck is not going their way when, like, James Franklin kind of said before he was fired, obviously, that last year, like, things were going their way. Like Minnesota, that fake punt, Wisconsin, the Jalen Reed pick 6, like things like that. Like they were able to turn the tide, and like some of that is luck, and the luck has just been not going in their favor this year.
Yeah, I mean, they took the number 2 team down to the wire. So even though Penn State's 3-6 and had so many these heartbreaking losses, I think it's fair to say that Penn State's probably a bit better than their record shows, and it should give confidence that they could pick up wins down the stretch here and become bowl eligible. But really it was surprising to see at the end of the game, it's like even though Penn State lost, it's like fans were cheering players and Terry Smith off the field, because I don't remember a time where that happened, because when James Franklin was here in recent years, it's like whenever it was a loss, it was always against a top tier team, and James Franklin getting booed, and it's just same stick stuff we've seen over the last few years. And it's just I think it's good to see just for the fan base to just kind of unite around Terry Smith, because he's kind of thrown into an impossible situation, and I think that just positivity, and it should help Penn State moving forward and getting a win this weekend.
Yeah, my thing is that this is Penn State's most complete game it's played since, I want to say Oregon, despite the first half lapses, going down 17-3 to end the first half. But I want to say that this is the most complete game that Penn State's played. The vertical passing attack got going, right? When was the last time we saw a Penn State team throw the ball down the field? It's been quite a bit of time. Terry Smith talked about that. Obviously, this is being recorded on Thursday. Talked about it yesterday. But he talked about, just finally being able to do that, right? And that, they haven't been able to get it going. He was asked a follow-up as to why it wasn't the case before. And he just talked about the fact that he doesn't really know, because he was the quarterbacks coach right before this, before he took over as interim head coach. So I think the passing attack was something. I thought Ethan Grunkemeyer, Lexi, I think you were the one that wrote about him after the game, but I think he grew up. A lot of the guys talked about that. Terry Smith talked about it. Third game as a starter, and you're starting with Iowa at Kinnick on the road at night. Ohio State, the number 1 team in the country. Indiana, the number 2 team in the country. And I thought he played a pretty good game for him, considering the circumstances he was thrown in. You can make the argument he outplayed Fernando Mendoza that whole game up until the game-winning drive that he orchestrated. Things like that. But honestly, just for me, the difference in this game was the 2 turnovers that Penn State committed. You look at that Katron Allen fumble, which it was his first fumble since his freshman year against Maryland, which was toward the back half of the season. And it's hard to point a finger at what Katron Allen has done this year for Penn State, but that ended up giving Indiana a scoring drive. The other turnover, I believe it was an interception.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, interception.
On the second play of the second half.
Second play of the second half. That was Ethan Grunkelmeyer's probably the worst play of the day. One of a few bad reads that he made. They scored off of that. It was 10 points between those 2 turnovers. You look at the pick that Fernando Mendoza had that King Mack snagged. That was just a great play by King Mack. Like, that wasn't any fault of what Indiana was doing on that drive. So it's these little things that you look at that was the difference maker in this one. Terry Smith said, honestly, like, the difference during the stretch for the season for Penn State is they've got to be able to close things out, right? I'm not Terry Smith. I'm not full of great analogies, so I'll use 2 that James Franklin used to say. He used to talk about how small things make the plane crash. I believe it was the Monday after UCLA. He went away from the plane, different form of transportation, talking about getting the train back on the tracks, right? And it's just like, how do you guys view these 1-possession losses? You know, the 1-point loss to Iowa, this loss to Indiana. Like, how do you view it as just summarizing Penn State's season so far? And do you think that these guys really believe in moral victories? Because from what I understand, I don't really think so.
Yeah, I think just one more thing about the Indiana game that I forgot to mention is Nick Singleton had his best performance of the season. And I think that was also super important to Penn State's success. I think that when Nick Singleton is playing well, Penn State is playing well. And when Nick Singleton is not playing well, Penn State is not playing well. And I think that has been a trend all season. Like, Penn State's best drive against Ohio State last week, or yeah, I guess 2 weeks ago at this point, was when Nick Singleton was getting the ball in space. And then they went toe-to-toe with Indiana when Nick Singleton was making his presence felt. So I think that was another big takeaway of mine, was that when Nick Singleton is doing good things, Penn State is doing good things, especially on offense, obviously. But how I view, the close losses, I think it's hard to really, I don't believe in moral victories. I think that obviously you can say Indiana was a little bit of a moral victory for sure. I mean, I don't think anyone expected them to come close to Indiana. I mean, we all predicted pretty much blowouts, and a lot of people did. That was across the board. So I think that Indiana was definitely, if you want to say, if you believe in moral victories, Indiana was a moral victory. But for the players, I think that they're just, super frustrated. I would say, Nick Dawkins, I think, kind of said it the best. He's always, a great one to talk to post-game after losses, because he just really articulates how he's feeling really well. And he basically was just saying how, everyone's frustrated, and he's especially frustrated because, they put so much time and effort into putting a good product on the field, and the product on the field this season has just not been good. And so what excuse can you give, your friends, your family, when you're not there, when you're so consumed with football, but you're not winning? And that's basically what he said. And so I think that the players are just kind of they're frustrated for sure. And I think that's the biggest thing I look at with these close losses. They are literally so close. And getting blown out, you just kind of get your teeth knocked out of you. You just kind of, there's nothing you can really do about it. But when you're that close, there's probably just one play that could have been the difference. That could have, Penn State could have beaten Iowa. Penn State could have beaten Northwestern. Penn State could have beaten UCLA. They could be 6-3 right now. And so I think that is just, it's just that one play. And, after the Oregon loss in the Big Ten Championship last year, a lot of players said that, it comes down to the little things. It comes down to the smallest of margins. And, when those small margins are not going your way, it's tough on you mentally. And so I think that's kind of what I take away from all those close losses.
Yeah, I feel like moral victories, they don't exist for a veteran team like this. I feel like that's only for rebuilding squads that are kind of young, maybe much more freshmen or sophomores, teams like that. And it's yes, taking the number 2 team down to the wire I could see it being a moral victory, but for this squad, I think they're on a 6-game losing streak. I mean, tight end Andrew Rapolier said the team's really hungry. I mean, they're 6 straight losses, their longest losing streak since 2004. If they lose another one, it's their longest since 1931. They're hungry for a win, and I mean they'll get one this weekend, I think.
Yeah, I think bringing up Andrew Rapolier is a great point. He talked to us yesterday. I said a few explicatives, really let everyone know how he's feeling. Yep. But I think Andrew Rapolier is a great person to talk to. And I just think he perfectly characterized what this team is about at this point. Obviously, they want to win, right? They're sick of losing. Season went down the drain, but it's just they're fighting. Everyone, this team has made it clear that they're not going down without a fight. They're swinging for the fences. Like, they're picking each other up. They're working hard. They believe in Terry Smith. Terry Smith believes in everybody, right? And then they're entering a stretch right now, right? Obviously, you look at the 6-game losing streak, with 3-game losing streak under Terry Smith with the gauntlet, right? But they're coming off the game that I touched on it before, that they've played their best game in a really long time. Obviously, you've kind of made it clear they're not taking any moral victories, but you can take a moral victory with the production of how this team is looking like right now. And right now, they're going into this weekend, land-grant trophy, right? Playing for a trophy, playing for some hardware. They don't really care that much, to be honest. It's another game. But they're playing against the Michigan State team that, just like Penn State, has not won a Big Ten game. So I'm going to throw this up to you guys, before I go do that, after Michigan State, it's a struggling Nebraska team. Not struggling, but they just lost Dylan Raiola for the year, their star quarterback. TJ Latif's been playing really well, their backup, but it's not the same Nebraska team that they have with Dylan Raiola. And then they've got a really bad Rutgers team as well. And Penn State, on paper, with the exception of Drew Aller, with the exception of no Tony Rojas, they've still got all the talent that they had at the beginning of the season that was ranked number 2. So starting this weekend, do you think Penn State can maybe pick it up this last 3 weeks, win a few football games?
I think it'll all come down to the Nebraska game. I think they do beat Michigan State. I think they still have that quarterback position kind of up in the air between Aiden Childs, and I'm not even going to try to pronounce. I think it's like Alessio I'm not even going to try. But, his first name is Alessio, or Alicio, something like that. They're kind of like up in the air with that. Michigan State is just kind of not really that great of a football team. So I do think like Penn State should, especially with the momentum coming off of Indiana, I do think they should win that football game. I think Nebraska is the one I look at where that one is kind of like, do they win, do they not win? Because like in my head, I'm like, oh, well, like this Penn State team, like they should beat Northwestern, like they should beat UCLA, like, and they should beat a Nebraska without Dylan Raiola. But will they beat a Nebraska without Dylan Raiola is the real question, because they should have won the Iowa game. You can make the argument they should have won the Indiana game, but they're just not winning games that they should kind of win. And like obviously I'm talking Indiana, like in game they should have won, not like coming into the game. It wasn't like they should win this game. But anyway, so Nebraska's kind of the one where I could see it maybe going Nebraska's way. Like you said, Lyle, TJ Latif is playing good football for them. They just beat UCLA, who beat Penn State. So definitely, I looked in the Nebraska game. I think that one will make or break, obviously, that 3-game stretch. I don't really think Rutgers should be much of a problem for Penn State, but if they lose Nebraska week before, I could see the whole team just kind of being like, whatever. I mean, like, obviously they want to win, but, like, it really doesn't matter at all at that point. They're just playing for, I don't know, pride, draft stock, I don't know. But so, yeah, I definitely think it all comes down to that Nebraska game, and I give Penn State a slight edge in that one, but I do think it could end up going the Cornhuskers' way.
I mean, I think if they can take like a team like Indiana down to 3 points, like they really should be able to win these next 3 games. But even if they do win like the last 3 games, it's like, would they even accept like a bowl invite? Because like obviously a lot of the like contributors in this team are like seniors, and like they might just shift their focus to the draft, or just not really have much of a want to play in a like somewhat meaningless bowl game, considering what the expectations were like heading into this season. So I think that would be interesting to see what they do, because even if they get to 6 wins, which I think it's possible, but I'm not entirely sure if they would even want to play in a bowl game.
Yeah, obviously we're looking 1 week ahead, 2 weeks ahead, 3 weeks ahead. We're not going 1-0 here. We're dealing with all the hypotheticals, but I think they could go 3-0 in the stretch, if I'm going to be completely honest. I wrote in my score predictions before Iowa that I'm not sure if I was going to pick Penn State to win another football game this year. And I'm not going to spoil my prediction for what I wrote this week, but let's just say I've got Penn State. I think I cruise into a victory in this one, to be honest. I think this team's playing really good football. You look at that Indiana game, and it's just, to be honest, like that's exactly what this team was capable of this whole year. Just all around good football. But you brought up the bowl game, which I want to hit on in just a sec here. But Terry Smith was asked, I believe 2 weeks ago, about if the situation arises, is this team going to play in a bowl game? And he said, yes, they're going to be playing in a bowl game if the situation arises. Obviously, they wanted to go 1-0. They were going to focus on that. But I think it's kind of interesting because Terry Smith it's been made clear guys are bought into him, and we don't really know what the future has in store for this program. And one of those big questions really is Terry Smith. So I wanted to ask you guys because Terry Smith did some reflecting on his season as the interim head coach yesterday. So I wanted to ask you guys, how would you evaluate the job that Terry has done, being put in the situation that he's in? What is his future with this program? And if Penn State wins out, do you think guys are going to want to go play in a bowl game under him?
Oh, that's a lot of questions to answer, but I'll
It's
start.
a lot of good stuff, though.
I'll start with the first one. I think I would assess Terry's job so far as I'd get if I'm grading on an F to A scale, I think I would give it a B minus. I think that it's hard for him coming on the defensive side of the ball when obviously the defensive side of the ball is struggling, but it's really the offensive side of the ball where things are just not going great at all, and that's a brand new quarterback, and so he had to really take the time to immerse himself within the offense. And I think if he already has that knowledge, then maybe he's doing a better job across these last 3 games, because Iowa, I think it was just completely up to Andy Kolnicki what was going on with the offense, because Terry probably he can try to learn as much as he can in that short period of time, but he didn't even know he was going to be the interim head coach until Sunday at 2 p.m. So I think now that he is more acclimated to what the offense is doing, what the guys on the offense are things like that, I think he's doing a better job since then. But I think there's also just been some growing pains, some of the questionable decisions he made against Indiana, just subbing 3 guys in and out on Indiana's final drive, wasting a timeout, that's just some stuff that you need to clean up if you're Terry Smith. I also think the timeout on Penn State's final drive against Indiana when they're trying to get that field goal, some of that time management was not great. There's been some other instances of some poor time management from Terry Smith, but overall, I think he's done like I said, above average job. I think he's done a good job for what was handed to him. He was thrown into a complete dumpster fire of a team that just lost its 12-year-long head coach and its quarterback. It was just a complete dumpster fire that he had to kind of try to pour some water on and get it to calm down. But I think he's done a good job in that sense, and I think that the guys have really started playing for him, and I think that has also been really important. His future with the program, he was asked, I've seen some chatter about him maybe, being a good fit for a general manager role. I kind of, I could see that, but I kind of think Terry is a guy who's going to want to be coaching from the sidelines. I think he's going to want to still be coaching. I do think whoever Pat Kraft decides to hire should definitely look long and hard at keeping Terry Smith on his staff. I think that Terry Smith has said multiple times he's a Penn State guy through and through, and he has really great recruiting ties to this area at this point. All the recruits know him. He's a very, good recruiter, things like that. So I think he should have a future at Penn State, but it also depends who, Penn State hires. So that'll be interesting to see. And then I think if the bowl game, I think players, I don't know. It's hard because I think obviously Terry, I think they're bought into Terry. So if Terry says we're going to play a bowl game, I think they'll be yes, we'll go play a bowl game.
Yeah, I mean, about Terry Smith, I'm not going to argue that he absolutely should be the next head coach, but just for the case for him, it's I do like how he's very just straightforward, just straight to the point, able to recognize the issue and try to fix it, because he said this week, it took him 3 weeks to fix the downfield passing, and he said he wanted to get that done sooner. But it's I like it how he was just able to recognize the problem and just not beat around the bush or just attack the problem and get it fixed. And we saw it against Indiana, and it looked much better. So I like the idea of Terry Smith being a head coach, because I think he could be a good fit down the road. Obviously, him right away becoming head coach at school like Penn State might be too much for his first head coaching job. But it's I like kind of the potential he kind of showed, but I mean, we'll see what the future's for him.
Yeah, I like how you brought up that they need to take a look at him for head coach. Obviously Pat Kraft, during that first press conference firing James Franklin being canned, he was asked if Terry's going to be in the running. He was like, oh, absolutely. That was at the time where multiple candidates were an option, and he wasn't going to say no. Excuse me. But I think you have to. You look at all these names that are off the board, right? You got to take a long, hard look at them, because I think he's done a great job. It's an impossible situation. James Franklin has, love him or hate him, this team has won football games under him. He did not take them to the expectation that everyone was hoping this program to reach, whether you look at this year or just in the past. But he's a good football coach. But you got to move on. You got to look in a different direction. And I think Terry's done a great job, right? Not only did he have to take over for Franklin, but you're just coming in with your starting quarterback, 3-year starter, 2-year captain, former 5-star. I'm not going to comment on Drew Allar's draft status right now, but he potentially could be a first-round draft pick, but we're not going to cross that bridge right now. But it's just an impossible situation. And you've got, I got to talk about Iowa on the road at night. You've got Ohio State, number 1, Indiana, number 2. This team has looked like a competitive program. Guys are bought into him. So I just think it's interesting how, where he goes from here. He talked about at his introductory press conference, he's mentioned it during his midweek press conferences, but he loves Penn State, right? He's been on this staff for 12 years. He played here for 4 as a wide receiver. His son went here. He's got a lot. His dad, I believe, went here. He's just got so much ties to the area. Obviously, Gateway High School, where he's a former athletic director. He's recruited so many kids on this roster, and he's got one of the more beloved figures in the Pittsburgh region. He's got a saying back when he was in the cornerback room. They have to check their feelings at the door, right? And if he's got the opportunity to stick around, he's going to have to check his feelings at the door, whether that's a front office role or just on the staff with a different coach. Because that man loves Penn State. There's no denying that. There's no arguing that. And I think he'd be great for a front office role. I do agree with you that I think he wants to be on the sidelines. Don't get me wrong, but if it means sticking around with Penn State in a front office role, if that's something he wants to do, he's going to have to consider that option and take a long, hard look at it. Because I think he'd be great, right? We talked about he understands what it means to recruit. He understands the new era of college football. He knows the balancing act between what it takes to manage the financial components, but have guys that are committed to plan for this program. He knows what it takes to be committed to this program, and he's been committed to this program during a hard stretch. Going to wrap up with my bull thoughts. If they win all 3, there's no reason why I don't think this team is going to play in a bowl game. What that bowl game is, it's the Pinstripe Bowl and what?
It's Pinstripe Bowl. It could be the Las Vegas Bowl. It could be the Rape Bowl. It's really, those are the low tier bowls that have a Big Ten tie-in. I think Penn State, kind of an advantage they have. It's obviously large fan base that can travel. So I think that could be attractive for some of these bowl games, but it's going to be one of the low tier bowl games, obviously. Right.
So fans aren't going to be happy about it, but I think we've talked about how many of the players Terry's recruited. So I think he said at his introductory press conference 75%. So it's if they're there and they believe in him, I think they're going to go out and play. I don't really know how much we'll see the seniors, or the guys declaring for the draft. You got to make sure you're healthy. Entering, that grind where you're preparing for the draft. But I think they're going to go out and they're going to play if the circumstances arise. It's going to end up being the team of the future with the young guys if they choose to stick around with that portal window looming and all the potential coaching changes. I think you're going to see, we've talked about this before, you could see up to 40, 50, 60 guys making changes depending on who's brought in next. And you're going to see significant roster turnover no matter what. But I think if they win all 3 games, Terry Smith's leading the charge. No head coach has been named. Even if a new head coach has been named in the waiting, I think you're going to see this Penn State team playing in a bowl game, and it might be the last time you see a lot of these faces suit up in the blue and white. Well, that's all we have time for today. We're going to be in East Lansing this weekend, so make sure you check out the content that we have here and everything that we've written this week. By doing that, you can go to psucollegian.com, go click on that football tab, and go check out what we've been reading. You know where else you can check that out? Spotlight News. Go give us a few scrolls. Well, that's all we have time for today. Make sure you guys are checking us out at psucollegian.com, reading us on Spotlight News, and also subscribing to the newsletter. Thank you, and we'll catch you next time.